You wake up, and there's no text, no plans, no distractions, just you. Silence. That's when it hits you. The fear, the pressure, the ache to be needed by someone. That's the moment most men run. But what if I told you this silence is the beginning of something unstoppable? Men are taught that solitude is failure, that being single means you're behind, that if no one's choosing you, you must be doing something wrong. But that's not the truth. The truth is, the man who embraces solitude becomes the most powerful version of himself. The man who walks alone by choice is building something deeper than anyone can see. This video isn't for everyone. It's for men ready to stop chasing attention, stop begging for connection, and start becoming someone who can't be ignored. This is for the man who wants control, clarity, and complete command of his life. If you're that man, stay with me. In a world that celebrates noise, the man who chooses silence stands out. In a world obsessed with instant gratification, the man who waits, sharpens, and disciplines himself becomes elite. This isn't about isolation. This isn't about running from people. It's about returning to yourself. Too many men jump from relationship to relationship, job to job, friend group to friend group, chasing approval, hoping someone validates their worth. But they never stop to ask, what happens if I stop chasing and just sit with myself? What happens is transformation. And today, I'll show you how solitude reshapes everything. Your mind, your focus, your standards, and your presence. When you stop needing others to see your value, they start noticing you without effort. The fear of silence. Silence is the most terrifying sound for many men. It doesn't scream, it doesn't judge, it doesn't threaten, but it reveals everything. The moment the world goes quiet, the notifications stop, and there's no one next to you, that's when the real battle begins. Because now, there's nothing left to distract you, no one to entertain, no drama to respond to, no conversation to hide in. It's just you, face to face with your own thoughts. And for many men, that's something they've been avoiding their whole life. You sit there, and the thoughts you buried start to rise. The regrets, the shame, the voices telling you you're not enough. The fear that no one will ever truly see your worth. The truth about what you've been pretending doesn't bother you. That person who ignored you. That opportunity you never took. That version of yourself you swore you'd become, but didn't. It all comes rushing in. This is why some men jump from one thing to the next. Not because of the relationship, not because of the attention, but because they don't want to face the silence. They don't want to ask the real questions. Who am I? What do I stand for? Am I proud of the man I've become? Most never ask those questions, because deep down, they already know the answer. But that's where real growth begins. Not in the gym, not in the clubs, not in motivational videos. Growth begins the moment you stop running from silence and decide to face it head-on. You sit there, uncomfortable. You let the pain rise. You let the self-doubt echo. You feel the void, and you refuse to fill it with cheap distractions. That takes more courage than chasing approval ever will. Because in that silence, something powerful happens. First, your mind fights back. It throws every memory and insecurity at you, begging for escape. But if you stay with it, if you stay calm, something shifts. Your mind begins to quiet. The noise fades, and underneath all the chaos, you find clarity. You realize you're still standing. You realize that those thoughts don't define you. They just visit you. You are not your insecurities. You are not your past. You are not the judgment you imagine others are making. You are the man who stayed, the man who faced his own darkness and didn't run. That's rare. That's real. Approval detox. Most men are addicted and they don't even realize it. Not to substances, but to something just as dangerous. Approval. They wake up and check their phone. Did she message me back? Did someone like that post? Did anyone notice me? It seems harmless, but it's not. It's dependency. It's a trap. And it's stealing your strength. Approval seeking is invisible. It hides behind politeness, behind overthinking, behind fake smiles and constant yes when you really mean no. You start shaping your entire life around what other people might think. You say the right things to avoid conflict. You hold back your real thoughts to fit in. You tolerate behavior you hate just to be accepted. And slowly, you forget who you are. Approval makes you weak because it ties your self-worth to someone else's reaction. You become scared of being disliked, misunderstood, or ignored. So you try to please everyone and end up respected by no one. But here's the truth. Real power begins when you let that go. Imagine waking up and not needing anyone's permission to feel confident. Imagine speaking your truth without hesitation. Walking away from people who take more than they give. Being alone without fear, because you know you're enough without constant reassurance. That's what happens when you detox from approval. You stop replying instantly just to look interested. You stop reshaping your values to keep others comfortable. You stop apologizing for your boundaries. You begin to filter people based on your standards, not on whether they approve of you. And what happens? People start noticing you. But this time, it's not because you're trying to impress them. It's because you're focused on something far more important, your self-respect. Others feel it. Women feel it. Friends feel it. Even strangers feel it. They recognize when you're not trying to be chosen because you've already chosen yourself. That kind of energy is rare, and it's magnetic. You see, most men try to be liked, but the men who are admired, the men who are remembered, are the ones who stop trying. Not because they're arrogant, but because they're grounded, clear, centered. They know what they stand for, and if someone doesn't like it, that's fine, because they're not bending. Approval detox, the quiet rebirth of a man. You let the pain rise. You let the self-doubt echo. You feel the void, and you refuse to fill it with cheap distractions. That takes more courage than chasing approval ever will, because in that silence, something powerful happens. At first, your mind fights back. It throws every memory and insecurity at you, begging for escape. But if you stay calm, something shifts. The noise fades. Your mind begins to quiet. And underneath all the chaos, you find clarity. You realize you're still standing. You realize those thoughts don't define you. They only visit. You are not your insecurities. You are not your past. You are not the judgment you think others are making. You are the man who stayed. The man who faced his own darkness and didn't run. That's rare. That's real. Most men are addicts, and they don't even know it. Not to alcohol, not to drugs, but to something just as dangerous, approval. They wake up and check their phone. Did she text back? Did anyone like that post? Did someone notice me? It sounds harmless, but it's not. It's dependency, a trap, a thief of your strength. Approval seeking hides in politeness, in overthinking, in fake smiles, in saying yes when your soul screams no. And slowly, you forget who you are. You start shaping your life around what others might think. You say the right things to avoid conflict. You tolerate behavior you hate just to be liked. But here's the truth. Approval makes you weak, because it makes your self-worth dependent on someone else's reaction. You become scared of being disliked, so you try to please everyone and end up respected by no one. But real power begins when you let that go. Imagine waking up and not needing anyone's permission to feel confident. Imagine saying what you believe without flinching, walking away from people who take more than they give, being alone without panic because you know you're enough. That's what happens when you detox from approval. You stop replying instantly to seem interested. You stop reshaping your values to keep others comfortable. You stop apologizing for your boundaries. You begin filtering people based on your standards, not based on whether they approve of you. And suddenly, people start noticing you, but not because you're trying to impress them, because you've already chosen yourself. That energy is rare, and it's magnetic. Most men try to be liked, but the ones who are admired, the ones who are remembered, are the ones who stop trying. Not out of arrogance, but out of alignment. Approval detox is brutal at first. You feel the withdrawal. You want to explain yourself. You want to be understood. You want everyone to agree, but that fades. And what replaces it is peace, freedom, confidence without performance. You become the man who walks into a room and doesn't try to be seen, yet ends up being the only one people remember. You speak less, but everything you say hits harder. You move with quiet certainty, and in a world full of noise and fake strength, that self-respect sounds like thunder. This isn't about disrespect. It's about boundaries. You don't control others, but you don't let them control you either. You don't need to be loud. You don't need to prove. You don't need validation. Happens because you've already validated yourself. Clarity through solitude. There's a moment in every man's life when the fog lifts, but it doesn't happen in noise. It happens in silence, in solitude. That's where clarity is born. You don't realize how much of your thinking isn't yours until everything else fades away. Social media, opinions, expectations, they drown out your voice. But when you finally step back, you start hearing something you haven't in a long time. Yourself. You remember what you really want, not what they told you to want, not what society said you should chase, but what sets your soul on fire. In solitude, you stop reacting. You start observing. Then, deciding. What energy do I allow in my life? Who drains me? Who builds me? What habits serve me and what habits steal from me? Solitude strips away the lies, and what's left is truth. Maybe painful, maybe uncomfortable, but real. Once you've tasted that kind of honesty, you can't go back to pretending. You stop tolerating mediocrity, not from ego, but from clarity. You say no more often. You stop apologizing for needing space. You cut ties, not out of bitterness, but out of precision. Because solitude doesn't just clear your head, it sharpens your focus. You become deliberate. Your environment reflects your values. You no longer explain your choices to people who'll never understand them. Why? Because you're not living for them anymore. That's the shift. That's the power. You stop craving noise. You stop chasing attention. You start craving purpose and peace and progress. You stop needing respect and start commanding it. Once you've built that clarity, you become hard to influence. People can't manipulate you with guilt, attention, or flattery. You're no longer chasing approval. You're following direction. Your direction. Your vision. And nothing is stronger than a man who knows where he's going and doesn't care who doubts him. You walk differently. You speak differently. You say less, but what you say carries more weight. Because when a man knows who he is and what he's building, he doesn't need to explain it. He simply lives it. That's the gift of solitude. It burns away everything that isn't essential. What's left is a man of purpose, peace, and unstoppable clarity. So if your world feels quiet right now, don't rush to fill it. Stay there. Sit with it. Listen. That silence? It's your life speaking to you. And if you're wise enough to hear it, it will change everything. You don't need more attention. You don't need more followers, more texts, more dates. You need more of you. More silence, more stillness, more moments where you return to your center and remember who you are. The man who walks alone isn't lost. He's refining. He's evolving. He's becoming someone the world won't recognize because he doesn't look like someone who needs anything. He moves like someone who has chosen himself. And when you reach that point, something incredible happens. You stop chasing life, and life starts aligning with you. The right people appear. The wrong ones fall away. Opportunities flow, not because you force them, but because your energy becomes undeniable. If this spoke to your soul, don't just nod and scroll. Take action, subscribe, comment. Share this with a brother who needs to hear it. We're building a space for men to rise, not through anger, not through ego, but through truth and clarity.